So good evening. Hello, welcome. I'd like to start by thanking the Dean of Art and Design, Joanne Arbuckle, and the Dean of Graduate Studies, Mary Davis, because this speaker series is a joint initiative of both of them, so thank you. This is now, I think, the 7th in the Hand of Fashion speaker series, and it's been an incredible series of speakers and important change makers in the sustainable fashion industry, and no one more so than Simone Cipriani. He is the organizer and the one responsible for bringing this series to FIT, so thank you, Simone. There is no one more passionate on ethical fashion and artisanship in the developing world in particular than Simone. As the founder of the Ethical Fashion Initiative, a flagship program of the United Nations, the work they are doing to connect global craftspeople to the luxury fashion industry is without parallel. And it's of vital importance to the sustainable future of the fashion industry, and is helping to retain and revalue the incredible depth and breadth of craftsmanship from around the world. So I do want to reference that this is Fashion Revolution Week. It's a week when we honor those that died in the greatest garment disaster that's been recorded thus far. It was 1,139 people that died in the name of fast fashion, and 2,500 that were injured in that single building collapse in Dakar 3 years ago this Sunday, April 24th. Part of the legacy of that disaster is the celebration of those that work continuously and tirelessly to change this industry and this business for the better, and that's really what this series is about. So with that in mind, this evening Simone Cipriani will be in conversation with Miguel Fluxá of Camper Shoes, and Miguel is the 4th generation of the family joining the business that was founded in 1975 by Lorenzo Fluxá. So he is responsible for the brand extension, as well as for the research and development of the new ideas and collaboration in the fields of communication, product, and interior design. We truly believe in the importance of these conversations that we're having, so we believe in having them, we believe in sharing them, and we believe in bringing them to more people and bringing more people into that conversation. We're in New York, so we know the competition for your attention is enormous. So we really appreciate your attendance and ask you for your continued support for the rest of the series, to share, to invite others, and bring more people into this really vital conversation. So thank you very much.
So Sass always says that I have to speak in the mic because my voice is too weak. Can you believe it? That's unbelievable. But it seems that it is important because of the recording of the session. So you'll hear me even more loudly. We've been having these conversations for quite a while now about sustainability, isn't it? And you know what is my view about sustainability? Sustainability is about things that last, which is to say it's about having a long-term perspective. And this is the right way. When you have a long-term perspective, this is the way to put people and the environment in the right way in your value chain. You don't want to mess the relationship up with them, because when you have a long-term view, you have to keep on working with people. You have to keep on working in the environment, so you want to have a good relationship with them. That's sustainability. One of the best ways to achieve sustainability in a business, it's not the only one, but it's a system which works, is to have a family-run company that runs a business, an old business. And we have here today Miguel Fluxá, who is at the helm of a business which is 4 generations old. Can you believe it? 4 generations old. I think, Miguel, I don't know, but I think only Hermes is older than Camper. I don't know, but it's something like that. This means that this guy has long-term perspective in his DNA. You know, when he goes to do the medical checks and he goes to do the blood testing, the doctors are always astonished because they find LT, what is it? It's long-term. It's long-term. You have to reassure the doctors. It's not something like lazy. No, it's long-term, something serious. And I know this. I know that this guy is like that because I happen to be in the supply chain of Camper. why I am in the supply chain of camper. You know what I do, you know the work I do. A couple of seasons ago, we met and we decided, thanks to them, they came to look for us. He sent one of his collaborators, Cecilia, to look for me, and I was busy, I was always traveling, and this lady, he sent like a hunting person who was able to block me one day, so you've got to come to London, man, and you've got to meet me because I've got to speak to you. Miguel wants us to speak, so Gia, come. We developed an idea together, an idea of a collection, an idea about working together for us to produce shoes on behalf of camper in Ethiopia. But the long-term perspective brought us to work since the beginning together in a very innovative way. They didn't do what usually fashion brands do. Fashion brands, when they go to a new supplier, they send one item in their present collection, and they say, can you do it? Whatever your capacities are, you've got to find a way to do it. This is not the way Miguel and his team came to us. They came to us to develop a platform. You know what is a platform? It's not only a collection, it's more than a collection. It's an idea of collection which is based on the capacities and the materials that you have at hand in the place where you work, and an idea of a collection that can be gradually scaled up so that the supplier and the brand grow together. And this growth path is guided by the brand. I see, when I was young, and I always say it was not in the First World War, it was more recently, I was an alpinist. I was also quite a good alpinist. And I see Miguel and his team as my alpine guide. They are guiding us. Since the very beginning, they wanted to take a rope, to leash the rope, to leash us together, and to start climbing step by step in order to grow together. This is about sustainability. They saw we were lacking some key inputs of production, and so they provided these inputs of production at the very beginning, the cutting dies, proper patterns. Because Miguel is not only a manager and an entrepreneur, but he's also a shoemaker. He knows what a shoemaker needs to follow him on the levels of quality that he demands. That's the reason why they organized this in this way. And after 2 seasons, we are today at the end of the production of the second collection. We are in development of the third collection. Our quality has markedly improved. The delivery time, not so improved, but we are catching up. We are catching up. First quality, then delivery, then time. And we are growing also in the quantities. And we have more people in the shoemaking unit that we have in our tannery in Ethiopia, where we make green leather. We have more people at work. They are happy. They are well paid. There is an impact, but the impact is there because on the other side, we have a family-run company that wants us to grow. This is a lesson about sustainability. So I'm very glad that you can listen to what Miguel is going to tell you today, because Miguel is going to tell you something about the story of the company, about where they are going, what they want to do, maybe also something about our collaboration, I don't know. What I tell you is, to listen to that is to listen to a lesson on sustainability, long-term perspective, working together to grow. Miguel, I'm going to sit in the public because I've got a lot to learn from you.
Thank you, Simone. It's a pleasure and it's an honor to be here. It's a pleasure to be part of your project, to work with your team. It's not such a pleasure to talk after you because you have such a strong energy. And I'm a guy from Mallorca. Mallorca is the island of the calm. And so, hold on. I'm going to start. So I'm going to explain you a little bit about camper and about the history of what Simone was talking about. So we are, well, I'm the member of the 4th generation. So as Simone was saying, we are a family-owned company, still 100%, which is a bit rare today. And we have been capable of surviving over 4th generation. So this is my great-grandfather. He was a farmer from Mallorca. And nobody really knows how, and nobody really knows why, because he probably didn't speak any English, he probably didn't have any money. But at some point, he took a boat, he went to England, and he came back to Mallorca with some machinery. Again, really nobody knows why. Mallorca is an island in the Mediterranean. It's a poor island. Well, it used to be a farmer's island, so there was really no industry. And actually, there was no industrial revolution in Mallorca, except for the shoes. Then, after some years in the 50s, 60s, has become very well known for the tourism. But before that, it was just farmers. He came back with some machinery, and he set up the first shoe factory in Spain. And I think well, it's one of these stories, we don't know exactly why, because at the time there was no Instagram and no nothing, so it's just. But what's important is that he did something which is more or less what Simone was talking about, Africa. I mean, he set up an industry based on good quality. So he set up a factory for men's shoes, basically, Goodyear welted. Again, it's kind of strange to make a Goodyear welted shoe in Mallorca in 1877 because there were no suppliers, no market. So he was probably impressed by what he saw in London or wherever he went. But this is something which has been in the heritage and in the DNA of the company. So trying to make good quality shoes. And as I was saying, then Mallorca became very well known for shoemaking in the 20th century. After some years, there were about 200 factories in the island. It was the only industrial revolution. And there was a good quality of artisans and shoemakers, which was amazing, which now is kind of disappearing. There are not that many factories. The factory of my grandfather is still there. But it was a good thing. It was a long-term thing. And it was bringing quality and jobs to the people, which is great. So this is one of the first shoes that he made, well, or some of the shoes that we have from the archive. Again, this is well, it's kind of the family picture. This is, as you can see, there are a lot of artisans which then became, and they set up their own factories. So that's why Mallorca became well known for making good shoes, men's shoes. And so the two circles, one is my great-grandfather, the one behind him is his father, so I don't know how to say that in English, but and the kid is my grandfather, so which is the one on the circle as well. He was born in a shoe factory. These people were really shoemakers. I'm not a real shoemaker. I'm something else, but these guys were shoemakers. I mean, they were living in the factory, they were born in the factory, and they were making shoes. We still have the factory of my grandfather, and you can see where he was living and where my grandfather was born. Well, that's the brand of my grandfather. I mean, the shoes of my grandfather were branded as Antonio Fluxá, which was his name. When my grandfather, my great-grandfather died very young. He died when he was, I think he was 40 or something like that. So he died quite young, and my grandfather was 10 when he died. After that, he took the factory when he was 18 because you need to be older, and he had to start almost from scratch because the factory was kind of bankrupted. So he had to start from minus probably, but he was a very clever guy. This is the shoe factory today. The brand that was then my grandfather branded the brand as Lotuse, so it's a brand is mainly local, and that's my grandfather here. So family history. These are some pictures from the factories in the 50s, 40s, 50s, and that's the brand which he branded after that. Again, my grandfather was an entrepreneur. He was a very clever man and a very visionary man, and he knew that shoemaking was very difficult, and it's a great job, but it's a tough one. And he invested into something which was called Viajes Iberia, which was tourism. He saw that tourism was becoming important in Spain and in Mallorca. And well, he set up this company, which now it's a very big company. So the heritage. So we have this quality industrial tradition. So we come from an industrial heritage. We are not designers. We are shoemakers. And we have a quality tradition. Simone was saying, I think we have long-term vision. Everything that we do, it's thinking in the long term. We think more in the next generation than in our generation. And probably today this is an advantage. I think that in a world where everything is measured by quarters and by seconds, I think to be able to have a long-term vision is something very strange, it's something very unique, and it's a privilege. So I think that this is something which is important. We wanted to compete with the best, and I think that this is something which has been also in the DNA of Camper since the beginning, but my great-grandfather also already went to England to see what they were doing there with the factories. My grandfather was a man who really traveled a lot and who was very interested in competing with the best. Unfortunately, he couldn't do it because Spain was a closed economy at that time. It was under a dictatorship, so it was not easy. But he really had this vision to do it. Love to the profession, we love what we do, and this pioneer spirit. This is my father and his two brothers. So one of them is taking care of the travel agency, or and the older one is well, he died last year, but he was taking care of the shoe factory of my grandfather. So we still very family. Now we are fourth generation with my cousins, and we're kind of taking over. Camper as a brand was set up in 1975, so when my father joined the business, he wanted to do something with this heritage, but trying to set up with all these roots, with all this heritage, and with all these values, trying to set up a contemporary brand and a brand connected to his moment and to his society. So the first shoe is this shoe here. This is a very interesting shoe because it's actually the shoe that I'm wearing. This is the shoe that Mallorcan farmers were wearing, and it's a recycled shoe. It's not a recycling of abundancy, which is what we have today. It was a recycling of scarcity. So because Mallorcan farmers did not have any money, but there were factories, there were tanneries. So when you cut the leather, there are wasters of leather. So they were making these shoes with the wasters of the leather and with pieces of carouage, I don't know how you call it, like canvas. And then the outsole was made out of tires. So it's a very interesting shoe. It's a shoe with a history. And camper means farmer in Mallorquin. Mallorquin, it's a dialect of Catalan, which is the language that we speak in Mallorca. We come from the Mediterranean, and again, it's a very beautiful space. But of course, the culture, the history, the environment affects what we do. And this is something which is, I don't think it's just for us, I think it's for everybody. I think what we do is influenced by that. Mallorca was quite well known for painters and writers. It's a quite creative place at some point. But it's also good to be outside of although we are international, we're worldwide, but it's good for us to be in a place which allows us to have quite a unique vision. So this is the camper spirit. Camper introduced the casual. We were doing in the family Goodyear welted shoes, so they were very classic shoes. In black and white. Spain was a very closed economy. Franco, which was a dictatorship in Spain, he died in 1975, which is the year that Camper was founded and the democracy came to Spain. So there was a movement trying to introduce new things and trying to do new things, and Camper is probably one of the brands that represented this. And it tried to introduce the casual, and it offered a unique product. And I think that this is probably part of the foundation of the brand, where we, with all this heritage of making shoes, we introduced design and comfort, basically. So, and this is the camper product. No? It's functional, it's young, it's fun, quality and comfort. It's innovative and it's unexpected. So these are some of the things that try to define our product, and that the first product really defined very well. I think that this has the first product has been kind of a guide for us also to do the rest of the things. Since the beginning, Camper was trying to communicate in a different way. These are advertising from the 1976, so it's quite an old ones. With a lot of humor, a lot of graphic design. I think that's part of also what we try to do. We try to have some fun as well, and talking about the product, talking about the functionality of the product. Probably there were no rights issues at the time because we were using all these images, but it was well. Some of them were talking about the usability, so after a tough day you can wash them and they're like new, and I don't know, whatever. If they don't kiss you a lot, we'll give you back the money. So it's kind of all these messages, which was kind of a bit naive, a bit fun, quite modern in a way for what it was Spain at that time, and really with a very strong and very unique language. You have to bear in mind that Spain was really a closed place at that time. So there were really no new things. It was not like the US. First shop, we went into retail quite soon, so we started selling into third parties, so like shoe shops. But we already opened the first shop in Barcelona in 1981, and Barcelona has been a reference for us, even if we are from Mallorca. It's true that Barcelona has, at the time, especially in the 80s, Barcelona was very strong in design. There was a new generation of people which were doing incredible things. And Camper, well, was kind of working with these people, and this is the first shop. Again, it was a very unique shop. It was a shop which had a lot of humor. It had a lot of graphic elements. There were these posters that were changing every 6 months. These beautiful shop windows that we did. And it was really an amazing concept. Again, a lot of graphic history, with some humor and some. Well, it's Spanish, so it's not that easy. Trying to make jokes in another language is always very difficult. So these boxes again. Messages in the. This is the first shopping bag, which was saying "I'm coming from Camper," which was very strong. Okay, I need to play this. That's a bit the spirit. The other thing, family, of course, is important. And as I was saying before, another part which is important for us is what we call together, trying to build things with a creative network. And we have done it basically with three elements. No? One is the product, which is the key to Camper. I mean, we are a very product-driven company. Everything goes around the product. Of course, the communication is something important, so this is something where we're also trying to do something strong, and the architecture. So the shops have been a very strong communication element for us. It has not just been an element to sell the shoes, but it has also been an element to communicate the brand. We have quite a strong design team in-house. I mean, We are from all over the world, so we have Americans, we have Japanese, whatever, a lot of people, and quite young design as well. So there's this mixture between a design team which is young and very international, which is this know-how of how making shoes, because we also have a lot of technicians which have a lot of know-how, as Simone was saying, about how to make the shoes. We do some workshops every year in Mallorca, which is a very nice place. We work with some schools. We do for 10 days with the objective of making a shoe. So some of the students, some of the people that we have in the design team actually come from these workshops. We have a very beautiful place in the countryside, which is where we do like kind of a think tank. We also invite people from outside to talk, so it's kind of nice. As I was talking, a lot of craftsmanship still there. I mean, we're trying to retain and to try to also bring new people into this craftsmanship. Unfortunately, it's something which is getting kind of lost, but we also have some young people as well. So it's important for us. This is the last maker, so whatever. And we mix also this craftsmanship with technology. That's also for sure. So. There's a lot of craftsmanship, but there's a lot of technology as well, whether it's 3D printing or whether it's measuring the comfort of the shoes or whether it's whatever. These are our offices in Inca, which is a very industrial place. Inca is where my great-grandfather was from there, and we're still there. And we make a lot of shoes, too many sometimes, but yeah, a lot of collections, and that's a little bit the way we work. We have some of our icons. So basically, the collection, I would say, we have a lot of long sellers. So things that have been there in the collection for many years. This is the Pelotas, which is probably one of the most recognizable shoes, which was a kind of sport-inspired shoe, which was launched 20 years ago already. But it became kind of our icon. It has been a very strong shoe since then, and it's a very high quality shoe, extremely comfortable. And then a very wide collection of creativity. These are some of the styles over the past 20 years. Very different range, men's, women's, very different. So, well, outsoles, also very different design of the outsoles. And these are some of the things also from the latest collections that we have been working on, and that we that try to show this thing about well, creativity, comfort, new lines. Just go. We do have a strong, as I was saying, collaboration program. So we work with a lot with architects, fashion designers, working on shoes, and working on the design of the stores and working on the communications. So even though 90% of our collection, or 95%, is done in-house, we also have some collaborations, from Bernard Wilhelm to Roman Kremer, who's our creative director today, to Gosha Rubczynski, to Veronique Branquinho, Jasper Morrison, very different people, basically from industrial design and from fashion design. So I'm from all over the world. I'm very different from one to each other. I think diversity is one of the characteristics of Campra as well, where we feel confident to do something which is completely diverse. Well, some graphic elements and some past. This is talking about the other fashion of Spain. There was a big campaign, institutional campaign in the 80s in Spain, which was talking about the fashion of Spain. And this was like the other fashion. Some shoe boxes from Memphis group, from Nathalie Dupasquier in the 80s. Memphis was a very strong group in Italy in the 80s. Bags from Mariscal, which is a Spanish graphic designer and artist. And then some campaigns that we have done over the past years. I'll go quick, but some beautiful, beautiful images. As I was saying, a lot of graphic history on the company. A lot of bags as well. These are some of the latest campaigns where we apply them in different places. So this is Hong Kong, that's the Duomo in Milano. Also with this touch of humor. This is the first shop that we opened outside of Spain. Again, shops has been important for us. This shop, which is still there, it's in Paris. It's in Saint-Germain, and also it was an important shop for us because, well, first of all, because this will, as I was saying before, to compete with the best, took us to open shops in the most important places and the most difficult ones. And we went to Paris, we went to London, and we went to Milan first. Trying to be in the best places and trying to compete with the best. And it was tough for a lot of years, but after 4 or 5 years, finally the success came. Camper was mainly Spanish until '92, more or less. So in '92, Spain, the image of Spain changed quite dramatically outside Spain because of the Olympic Games and because of the image of Spain changed quite dramatically, so this is why we decided to go international. So this store is still there. That's the one on Prince Street in Soho, which was done by Shigeru Ban, which is a Japanese architect. This store from Nendo, which are Japanese designers as well, which is kind of nice. That's from the Borolek brothers in Paris. This Fernando Mat. Fernando Mat is the one who did the first camper shop in Barcelona in 1981, and he also did this shop, which is a shop which we have been using recently a lot. Tokujin Yoshioka, a lot of Japanese, because we like Japan. This is the one on Madison, 59th, which is done by the Campana brothers from Brazil. And they have this, this was produced in Brazil actually, and it's this, they have this collection which is called Transplastic, where they have this plastic chair and they kind of build them around with this, I don't know how to call it, but they do it in Brazil with local people. It's quite a nice one. That's Marco Rajovic from Brazil as well. Alfredo Haveli, this is Seoul, which is one of our biggest stores worldwide. There's Martí Guichet, which is an artist which we have worked a lot over the past years. That's a store in Madrid. Jaime Ayón, which is also a Spanish industrial designer, which we have worked a lot. This was the first store that we opened in New York in 1999, so already some years ago, which is not there anymore because we changed it for the other one. Same street, which is Prince Street. But this was on Worcester, the actual one is on Green. It was a beautiful store, and it was there for many years, with very simple, but with these lights from Ingo Mauer, which is a lighting designer from Germany. The best lighting designer over the past 30 years by far, and a beautiful shop. Milan, Kengo Kuma, which is another Japanese architect. The other thing that defines us is this unexpected. So we like to do unexpected things, whether it's unexpected designs, like this one. This is the last shoe that one of the last shoes that we launched, which is an injected shoe. It's quite technologic, it's the opposite of craft, but as I was saying, I think camper is diverse, and we believe in diversity, and we believe in doing different things. Strong shoes, or the twins. This is something that we launched in 1988. So it's already many years ago, where the shoes are different, right and left. It's something that today you see it in many places, but I believe if we were not the first ones, probably we were one of the first ones, and with a lot of humor. This is the collection of twins that we have made since then. I mean, it's still there, with a lot of fun, and a lot of recognition also for this unexpected and for this way of making the shoes in a different way. I think that this has been the success of Camper, trying to make something different, trying to make something with quality, and this is something unique. Again, more unexpected. This was a pop-up shop that we opened in Monte Napoleone, where people could write on the walls. So and it was something very strong at the time because this is in the 90s. Then again, there were a lot of pop-up shops, but it was made with IKEA lamps, camper boxes, and that's it. And people could write on the wall, and it was very, very strong. This is how they looked afterward, and some communication, which it's unexpected as well. This was another thing unexpected, and it was it didn't work. It was a disaster, but it was very fun. It was called Football, and it was a fast food restaurant, but organic. So everything was there was these rice balls, which were super good actually, with very high quality. But yeah, we were using the best rice, the best everything, but the balls costed us 2 or 3 euros, and we were selling them for 1 or 2 euros. So, but it was beautiful, and it was kind of fun. This was a hotel also, which is not the typical diversification for a brand like us. The hotel was a success; it's still there, which is called Casa Camper in Barcelona. We have one in Barcelona, one in Berlin. This was designed by Fernando Amat, which is it's a beautiful hotel in the city center of Barcelona. It's called Raval area. It's the neighborhood, and it's a historic quarter in Barcelona. Again, the layout of the rooms is completely different, so they're facing the interior, not the exterior, and the bathroom is facing is where you get the light in, and not the opposite, which is the typical hotel room. And you face through this vertical garden on the picture, where it's quite beautiful. We also have a bar, which is called Dos Palillos, but it's quite a nice one. Berlin is there as well, so we have another hotel in Berlin. This is the hotel, which is also very nice, where you have again you can take. So the bathroom is what is facing the street. So you take the shower, and actually you're facing the street. You have a shutter, so if you don't want to be seen, otherwise there's a vinyl, and they will see your silhouette. But it's a beautiful hotel with a restaurant again called Dos Palillos from the Borlec brothers. We did the Volvo Ocean Race, sailing around the world. We thought it was interesting to do an event which was run by wind and by renewable energy, and I think that is something which was very strong, and it was the design of the boat was amazing. We did this pavilion with Shigeru Ban, which was the first project that we did before New York, and it's a pavilion which is recycled, and it's easy to transport. Shigeru is very well known for making architecture for refugees, so he's an expert in making these temporary pavilions. He has done a lot of work after earthquakes in Japan, and he works a lot with cardboard. Well, the Volvo, again, this being underdogs, which is kind of something unique for us. Okay, what else? Omnichannel. Well, on-off. This is something that we're talking a lot today because, of course, the digital world is there, and we're being something that we have to live with it. We did this project with Vitra last year, which is a furniture company in Basel. They have a beautiful campus with these incredible architects, and they have this dome which is a beautiful dome. And we made this shop with Francis Kere, which is an African architect, and we try to make this digital shop. Although it doesn't look, it's a very advanced shop. So there was this integration between on and off, and you could see. Well, we're telling stories, of course, as well, but it was an amazing shop, and you could buy it either online or not. It would recognize the shoe. So there were a lot of elements which were quite technical. Well, this is the iPads that we have in the stores today. This is the project that we are launching now, which is called Camper One, where you can personalize your shoes. We're making them in Inca, so this is the shoemaker that is making them, and where you can really personalize them. So there is this contradiction between technology and craftsmanship, which is important for us, and I think well, we'll see what happens, because I don't know where the world is going to evolve. Maybe someday we will just sell files, or I don't know, but in the meantime, I think it's important we love our profession, and we try to keep it. So, Effie.
Bebé
EFI, ethical fashion, which we're launching today. It's an amazing project for us. It's something that, well, we got in touch with Simone through our common friend Curino from United Arrows 2 or 3 years ago. And we started talking, and we thought it was interesting to do something together. We really like their approach. We think it's an incredible job that they're doing. And we thought that we could also bring something interesting to their work. No? We believe a lot in what they preach, which is not charity, just work. Okay, let's try to build something. Let's try to build an industry. Let's try to build some sustainable jobs. Let's do a project together for some years, and let's try to build it and to leave something there, and that they can have an industry and they can have something which is sustainable. No? Long term and quality for sure is sustainability, and this I agree 100% with Simone. I think the quality and long term is something which is really sustainable. And today we are in a society which is very short-term driven and very low quality driven, unfortunately. I think these are values that we need to fight and that we need to defend. I think it's beautiful what they are doing. It's amazing. I mean, Africa, these colors and these images are really strong, and I think they add something. They fit very well with what we do, and they fit very well with the brand. But it's really amazing, the beauty of the leathers, the beauty of the colors. They are real artisans as well, so I think that yeah, it's true that we can give them some know-how, but it's true that in terms of artisans, probably they will be better than us, or they are better than us. And I think that this is something which is great. No? These are some of the leathers from the tannery, and some of the products, very handmade, of course. These products are available in our store in Soho since today, and worldwide in other stores. And that's the project. So we are very pleased, very honored, very happy to do this project together, very happy to continue it over the next years, and very excited to launch it. Thank you so much.
What kind of shoes are you wearing today?
Well, this is the shoe from the collaboration, which is the shoe that you should wear, but you are not. But no, this is a version of which is the first shoe that we made, which is the version of the first shoe that I was showing, which is the Chameleon, which is the recyclable shoe from Mallorca's farmers. So it's Mallorca and Africa together.
Mallorca and Africa together, the DNA of Camper and Africa together.
Yeah, and the Africa together. So it's it's a beautiful shoe. Yeah,
they're beautiful. Yes,
very comfortable. Yeah.
Hey, yes, so they're beautiful. They don't say they're beautiful. So you know, the Ethical Fashion Initiative was born. When we created the Ethical Fashion Initiative, I had in mind one thing. I had one dream, which was the one to realize an African boot. And it was Camper who gave us the way to fulfill this dream. I'm so happy Miguel is wearing them.
So we have 2 microphones set up here and here. If anybody has any questions, please come down and use the microphone because we are recording.
I will direct the questions in the same dictatorial way that you know, and all the questions are to Miguel, as usual. Okay? Your time.
Thank you, Miguel.
Hi, nice to see you.
Hi, nice to see you. In your presentation, you brought up several examples of your retail stores, and you also mentioned the challenges of digital and craft and artisan. Yeah. And you know, just recently I learned one of my favorite stores in the city, EMS, closed, and they're in the process of closing other stores as well. So I'm just curious to learn what are your considerations regarding retail, the future of retail? Is it all going to be online, or is there still a place for these wonderful brick and mortars that you described in your presentation?
Yeah, I think it's a key question, and this is something which we are discussing a lot, as I was saying before. I believe that online, at least in our case cannot believe without offline. And I think that you still need experiences. I don't think a brand like us can survive just online. Then where is the balance? I don't know, because it's true that the online sales are growing and the retail visits are decreasing. This is the reality today. So we will need to find the balance between how many stores do we need. And then I think that what we need to work a lot is two things. One is that we have really strong experiences in the store. Something that really people wants to go there, because you have a unique service, because you have a unique experience, because you have whatever. I mean, you dance flamenco, I don't know what, but you have to do something that brings people to the stores. It's not just enough to sell, I think, today. And the other thing that we're doing a lot is integrating the on and the offline. So we have iPads on the store that gives you access to the whole collection on the online, because then you have more availability. You can collect in the store, you can return in the store. There are things that the online will not be able to substitute, and I really believe in retail. I think retail has to be there, and it's important for us. Then again, where is the balance? I don't know. I mean, online is still going to grow over the next years, that's for sure. And online has a lot of advantages, but we'll see. We need to find the right balance.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm from a company who is recently getting into sustainability, and one of the things that I was hoping to take away today is kind of how to infuse sustainability into the company culture. And it seems like it's something that for you guys has been around from the very beginning, but you must have new employees over the years, like new initiatives, new partners that you partner with. How do you get everybody excited in the thing that is your vision in terms of sustainability, and trying all these new things that maybe won't work, but you kind of hope they will?
Yeah, we always hope. Sometimes they don't, but I think I mean, communication is key to try to involve people. I think being close to the people, spending time with them, explaining the projects. I think track records are important. I think being able to show what you have done and to have credibility is something that really people look at. And it's true that yeah, we have new projects, we have new people as well, of course. But it's also true that we have a lot of people who has been in the company. We have people who has been second generation. It's not just me. People who are sons of people which were working for my grandfather. And I think that this vision of working long term, I think, is very established in our company. This vision of making good things, because it's impossible to be perfect. But I think this culture of trying to do good things, trying to have a long-term vision, I think long-term is sustainable, if you can, of course, which is not easy. And quality, I think, is sustainability as well. That's the other thing, which is this culture of just wasting things one after the other. I don't know how sustainable it's going to be this for the next generations. But sometimes it doesn't go against, or it goes against us. I mean, to have a shoe that lasts for 10 years, 15 years, if you treat it well, of course. But I think it's something that you need to do. So.
Hi, Miguel. My name is Sarah Nakintu.
Hi.
I recently launched my handbag line, and it's made in Italy, but we make the hardware in Kenya, and then we make some other materials in India with artisans. When I was starting out, it was interesting to tell people about my line, and then the reaction was like, is that gonna be nice? Like, you know, how is it, like, how are you gonna make these bags? Like, you're gonna make them in Africa? Like, you know, it was just a weird reaction, and I'm from Uganda, so, you know, I'm thinking, it's gonna be amazing, and people are like, okay, right, in India, really? So what has the reaction been to your line that you've made in Ethiopia, and how are you communicating this to your customers, and what sort of, how are people receiving it?
Well, the reaction we'll see because we're launching it today, so hopefully it's going to be a great reaction. If not, I'm going to blame Simone, so it's okay. It's important to have someone to blame always. No, I think that the reaction so far has been great. I think people like this type of projects. It's also true that projects have to be sustainable by themselves, and you need to. At the end of the day, you need to sell, and you need to deliver on time, and you need to deliver the quality, and that's important. I mean, I don't think that just because we have a project which is great, but then it's not on time on the stores, or people don't like it, they're not going to buy it. I think this is quite important. In our case, it's true that we have some capacities of what Simone was saying, of bringing technicians to Africa and to work with them and to work with the deliveries and to trying to support them, which of course it's helping us. But so far, I think people are interested in these projects. Then, how big they come or how successful they are, we'll see. The market is tough. The market is competitive. There are a lot of good things in the market as well. I mean, there is a lot of bad things, but there's a lot of people that are doing good things as well. So you need to be able to compete. You need to be able to do it right, and you need to be able to convince the people. So we'll see. But we are very excited.
The next time somebody tells you, is it good for me to slap him in the face? Stop asking the question.
Hi. I think you are a very fun brand, and I loved how your advertising and your graphic. Can you, I'm a student, tell me a little more about the workshop that takes place?
Thank you. The workshop, we started the workshop in this beautiful place, which is in the countryside. It's an old farm, and we use it for kind of a think tank place. So we did all the collaborations projects from there. We have pigs, almonds. We have a lot of farming. So we do wine and olive oil. You haven't tried our wine, no? Yeah. It's sustainable, yes. At some point we thought it was interesting to bring people Mallorca and to do a workshop to work with young people. I think from the schools basically. Why? Because we are always keen on listening and learning from young people, which have great ideas and they are not contaminated. And it's also a way for us to bring people into the company. So a lot of these people now are working on the design team. I would say half of the design team comes from the workshops. This workshop we have been doing, I think, for 7 or 8 years or something like this. It's a workshop which takes place in July. We work with the school, so we select some of the CVs, and if people want to come, we invite them. So we pay everything, we pay the flight, and they are there for 10 days. Even though it sounds fun to be in Mallorca in July for 10 days, they work a lot. They get to go to the beach one day, but only one. And the objective of the workshop is very simple, we invite people for very different profiles, like 10 students every year. We bring some artists, we bring some different people because we do an installation at the end. We do videos, we do everything. And the objective is to make a shoe. That's kind of the thing that we do there. We have made some beautiful shoes. Some of them have been produced for the collection afterwards. And it's well, it's something that we believe and that we like to do. Yeah. You can indications. No, you can. I will give you the contact, so you can send the CV and. That's the way. I'll put you in contact with the. This year the workshop is closed, and we are doing it in Korea. We're not doing it, and the next one we have to do it in Africa.
We have to do it in Africa. That's a very nice idea.
This is what we talked last time. Yeah.
Do it in Addis Ababa together.
Yes.
Wow.
striving to go zero waste. What actions are you taking to, or is that an objective of your company?
The last 5 years has been to invest in renewable energy. So all the energy that we get today, 100% is compensated with renewable. Project that we launched 5 years ago, I think. Basically with solar, with solar energy and some wind as well in Spain. And then the rest are initiatives, I think. But we try to do as good as we can, whether it's in our stores, whether it's in the hotel, whether it's in the hotel is a good example as well. We have a lot of the energy is also renewable. We have a system that recycles the water, so we save up to 50% of the water. So a lot of things that we do little by little. First one by far is this. We calculated how much energy we spent. We invested in renewable energy to produce this energy at least, and this is what we do it, and I think we're almost 100% compensating the energy.
I'd just like to follow up on that question regarding renewable energy. Are you trying to assess the carbon footprint of your products, and if so, change that you face?
Yeah, we try to assess it. It's not easy. I mean, where do you stop? But it's something that and this is the industry, because tanneries are not the cleanest. Which is for a small company like us, because we're not that big, is the biggest guarantee that you can have is working with the best partners, working with the best suppliers, whether they are big ones or small ones, whether they are. And I mean that's the toughest part of the supply chain. But there have been a lot of improvement. If you see the tanneries today, the new tanneries, they have all of them. They comply with the request. They're all chrome free. They have all the recycling. How do you say that? Utilities in there. So. And then you can look at it in two ways. I mean, the truth is that leather is something which is recycled. I mean, there's not a single cow which is killed to make a shoe or to make a handbag. It's people that eat meat and then they use but this is the biggest challenge. And the other challenge, of course, is transportation, because of course we need to supply. It's a lot of carbon footprint, but we try to compensate with clean energy. I mean, at the end, it's international, and there's should go, but just that they are in the industry.
Hi, my name is Robert Bergman, and I run a nonprofit called Responsibility in Fashion. And you just said that all your leather is chromium free. Did you say that? Which is, oh, it, okay.
Sorry, Jesus.
Right, so you are saying that you're on the way to removing the toxins?
Well, in chromium free we are there. We make chrome free. We don't make every colors. We make only sheep and goats, and there you have sheep and goats veggie. Cow hides chrome free. We are still struggling because the cow hide is very thick. Chrome is more difficult. We go slowly if you get rid of sulfides, then you can recycle the fleshings for fertilizers, for animals, to produce energy, which is very good. And then you remove the smell, because it's the sulfide, the origin of the smell. And then we've got the problem of the sides when they are at the origin, to preserve them. We have a drum that removes the 50% of the salt, then another 10% chrome-free. We remain with 40% of groundwater to dilute when you have only the thing. Another way to preserve high the sun. If you listen to in technical terms, which is to say that it doesn't work, but it's not true. The other step is the recycling of the wool, as we work with many sheep. So it's a long way to go. It's a 4-year program. Chrome-free is there already with goats and sheep. Next step is chrome-free for cows. Then the next step is sulfide-free goats and sheep, then sulfide-free for cows. And then 4 years from now, we should be the first green tanner in the world.
It's amazing. It's great because you are such a small percentage of the leather market.
We are very small percentage.
The people that are chrome-free, it's great.
Thank you. I also use a mic.
Yeah. Hi. How do you run a large company like your own sustainably and pay fair wages and still turn a profit? It seems like that's a very difficult task, which is why more companies don't do it. Sustain your company.
Yeah, yeah. It's a difficult equation, but well, I think the only way you can do it is by making great products and great quality and trying to justify the price. I mean, the problem today that you have is that the price, there's a lot of price pressure in the market, and today, and this is something which is difficult to explain to people, but as people ask for sustainability, they ask for fair wages, but then they want a shoe for, I mean, it just doesn't work. And when you see the amount of work that goes into a shoe, when you see the amount of people that are involved, when you see the processes which are so complicated, and people say that shoe with good quality, good suppliers, good partners is expensive, it's difficult because I cannot explain this to everyone. I would love to. I will go everybody to go to our factory in Inca, but that doesn't. You cannot explain it to everyone. Great products, and you need to try to convince them. It's not easy today. That's the reality.
What they pay to us for these shoes enables us wage, which is more than fair wage in many. And to do that in a country, Ethiopia, where there is no minimum, we took the decision to put no minimum, but I'm not sure it's the right strategy. We pay and fair wage and living wage, which is the real thing. Living wage, it's about having the possibility to cover the basic needs of a family. And in the world of today, these things are possible. But Miguel is right. They're possible if you have the right prices on the products and the right quality, and you have the right margins on. Their company is a family-run company, so they have supply chain. Are when a company subcontracts production to another contractor, who sends it to another, who sends it to another, and then to another, and you have 4 layers of it's totally unknown to the first one. This is what it was the fourth tire supplier, several big brands, who didn't even know this is there. These are the conditions in which you have exploitation. Don't know anything about what happens in the factory. So another thing is to have a control about the supply chain. This is what they do because they care about buyers' higher price. But with quality as they do, which is to say a product that lasts. We are together in Inca, it's impossible to finish them. One of these days I'll have to cut them.
Hello, my name is Natalia, and I'm a designer. And what I wanted to so it's a family-owned company, right? Are there, and how does it work? Like, I guess versus having to be on the stock market where there's a lot of pressure to always and being
yeah, the advantage probably is that you can take more risks. You can do projects like this or like the football. And I think that this is something which is an advantage today. I would say that in the long term we will all be dead. So it's good to look long term, but we need to survive tomorrow, and we need to. So for sure, and the only way you can bring professional people in a company is by being resources which are which we try to be on. We are just a family. Still 100% family owned. So.
And do you own equal?
No. Branch, so which we own a majority stake.
Do you take on different responsibilities?
Sorry? Yes.
Take on different responsibilities based on
yes.
your...
There's a board like a normal company. Some people are in the board, some not. They're just shareholders. And then executives.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think we may have one more question.
My name is Jackie. I run production in New York. We're in Brooklyn. One of Adrian replaced by the new generation declining. This is a huge issue. Like, I just missed a delivery because like two of their. Is this something you're experiencing?
A huge issue. In Mallorca, nobody one. Of course, if you work as a 12 months in a factory, or the same, okay. But you just work 6 months, and you are in a factory. So that's an issue, and this is something that. I don't know what's the solution. I mean, we're trying to bring in order to try to get new people in, but it's more and more difficult. I think it can be done for probably small productions for very high quality end, but big facilities in factories, and this is everybody wants a product. Nobody wants their sons to work in a shoe factory in Alicante, you know. And then when you go to some of these factories, the reality is that there are a lot of, at least in Spain or in Italy, a lot of immigrants, illegal immigrants, and black economy, and yes, you say made in Europe, but okay. I don't know, I think it's, there's some do is do quality and trying to supply with this, because otherwise it's you cannot compete, and it's going to be difficult. And to make it in Africa, yeah.
So I want to thank our speakers.